Imagine waking up after a storm and every ocean on Earth is simply gone. And whatever was living at the very bottom of it is now crawling across the sand toward you. We open with a family soaking up a perfect day on their yacht. Mom, Julia, slides into the water for a swim while her husband Tom and their son Ben are locked into fishing off the side, and their daughter Cassie has her headphones on, completely somewhere else. And this is where the film plants its first seed of dread. Julia feels something graze her leg underwater. She looks around. Nothing. She brushes it off as nerves, because who wouldn't? Then it happens again, except this time it grabs her and pulls, and she's screaming into open water while her own family can't hear a thing over music and fishing lines. Think about that for a second. She is feet away from the people she loves most, and she might as well be alone in the middle of the ocean. Tom finally clocks that his wife has vanished, and the second he spots her thrashing in the water, he's moving. He gets the kids, swings the yacht around, dives in, and hauls Julia back to safety. She's shaken but insists it was just a current. Nobody believes that, including us, but the family lets it go because that's what families do when they want the vacation to keep feeling like a vacation. That night, they throw a birthday celebration for Ben, cake and gifts and all. Cassie sneaks off to video call her boyfriend, and mid-conversation he shows her a sky full of dark, violent-looking storm clouds forming over the city before the call cuts out completely. She runs back to tell everyone, and Tom chalks it up to bad signal out at sea, which, fair assumption at the time. Then they hear something outside and step out to find a pod of whales swimming past the boat. Right on cue, the yacht shudders. Something big hits it from below. Tom dives to check the damage and comes back up with a nasty gash on his shoulder, courtesy of the propeller after something massive swam past him in the dark and he panicked. Julia stitches him up while he explains the yacht's engine is badly damaged, which means they need outside help immediately. Julia works the radio, Cassie works her phone, and neither gets anything but static. Ben lightens the mood for about 5 seconds by jumping out in a rubber mask to scare his sister, and honestly, that's the last genuinely funny moment this family gets for a while, so let them have it. The engine dies completely and the yacht is now fully stranded. Tom does the math out loud, for days of food and water, so their best move is to sit tight and wait for another boat to pass. Then the radar lights up and a strange sound rolls in, and the family runs outside to watch what looks like meteorites slamming into the water around them. One lands close enough to rock the boat, and as Tom fights to get the engine moving again, a second one hits nearby. It's only once the panic settles that Tom realizes these aren't meteorites at all. They're satellites, falling out of the sky. That detail should scare you more than the fireballs did, because satellites don't just fall. Something knocked them down. Smoke starts pouring from the engine, officially frying it for good, and the wind begins to howl. Nobody notices the compass spinning wildly in the corner, which is the kind of detail this film loves to slip past you right before it ruins your night. The storm hits hard. Tom fights the wind just to grab life jackets from a storage box. The power cuts out, and when it flickers back on, Julia's nose is bleeding and Cassie is throwing up, which is the body's way of screaming that something about the air pressure, or the world itself, is not right. A high-pitched frequency cuts through the wind, windows start shattering, and Tom lights a flare right before everything goes black. Morning comes, and the family wakes up battered but alive, the yacht wrecked around them. They step outside expecting ocean and instead find a desert. Every ocean on Earth has vanished, and their boat is now just a dead hunk of metal sitting on cracked seafloor. Cassie tries her phone out of pure instinct, gets nothing, while Ben quietly plays with 2 dead crabs because he's a kid and that's how kids process the end of the world. Tom checks the compass and realizes the magnetic poles have flipped, something that last happened over 700,000 years ago. Cassie has a breakdown once it hits her that her boyfriend, and everyone else back on land, is probably dead, and she pushes her own mother away when Julia tries to comfort her. Grief does that. It makes people push away the very hands trying to hold them together. While Julia and Tom sort through what supplies survived, Ben ties his birthday balloons to a rock, hoping it'll flag down other survivors. Tom manages to raise a man named Noah on the radio, captain of a submarine that's also stranded on dry land. Noah confirms the pole reversal theory and adds something worse: the shift is temporary, and the ocean is coming back, possibly within a week, and when it does, it's coming back violent. His submarine has room for exactly 3 people, and his partner didn't survive the crash. Tom and Julia convince him to save their kids, and Noah gives them his coordinates. Tom estimates 2 to 3 days of travel to reach him, so the family gets one more night of rest before the real fight begins. The next morning, while they're packing up, Tom spots a limping man in the distance carrying a makeshift harpoon, a dog barking beside him. Tom, being Tom, approaches with water instead of caution. The stranger drinks it, then without warning cracks the bottle across Tom's face and kicks him down. Julia comes running, but she's too late. The man drives the harpoon into Tom's stomach and finishes it by cutting his throat in front of his entire family. No, this is where the film stops being a survival story and becomes something much darker. The man turns on Julia next, hurling the harpoon and catching her shoulder as she flees. She makes it back to the yacht, hides her kids inside the sofa, hands them the flare gun, and grabs a knife before locking herself in the bathroom. The stranger breaks in, ransacks the boat for supplies, and eventually corners the bathroom, but Julia slips out through a hole in the wall just before he opens the door. This is genuinely a 1 billion IQ escape, using the one exit nobody would think to check while a killer is standing 3 feet away. She's almost clear when the man's dog catches her scent and tackles her, and Julia is forced to kill it to survive. The stranger hears his dog whimper and finds its body, and something in him completely breaks. Julia uses the chaos to climb back toward the broken window, but he finds her first, knocks her down, and drags her by the hair while she fights back with everything she has left. He pins her on the sofa and starts choking her, and that's the moment Cassie can't watch anymore. She steps out and fires the flare gun directly into him. The yacht catches fire instantly. The kids run for the exit while Julia goes back one more time to kick the man down and grab the map with Noah's coordinates. Outside, the three of them cling to Tom's body and grieve together for a few seconds before the man staggers out of the burning boat and they have to run, watching their entire home explode behind them. They stop to rest at a small waterfall, and Cassie wonders out loud if the balloons drew the man to them, which instantly guts Ben with guilt. Julia tells him it wasn't his fault, but there's no time to sit in it, because the man is still tracking them. They keep moving past a pond where Ben stops to stare at a stranded hammerhead shark, a small, eerie reminder that they are walking through what used to be someone else's entire world. The man closes in again, forcing them to run through a stretch of toxic waste, weaving carefully to avoid it, and they finally seem to lose him. As they travel, the landscape keeps reminding them what they're walking through: dead sea creatures, ocean floor plastic scattered for miles. Ben starts slowing down, clearly dehydrated, and when they stop to check the water, it's nearly empty because Cassie didn't seal the bottle properly. Julia snaps at her. Cassie snaps back that none of it matters because they're not going to survive this anyway, and that argument says more about where this family is emotionally than any line of dialogue could. They're not just fighting the planet, they're fighting to hold themselves together without Tom. They find a crashed plane and decide to shelter there for the night, sharing what little food they have left. Julia finds a photo of the family tucked in Tom's jacket, and it wrecks her quietly, the kind of grief that doesn't scream, it just sits there. Cassie asks how her parents met, and Julia tells her about Tom showing up as her patient at the hospital and winning her over with flowers and a poem, a small, warm memory dropped right in the middle of a nightmare, which is exactly why it hits so hard. Later that night, Cassie steps outside and the harpoon man ambushes her from behind. Julia gets there first and stabs him again, and again, well past the point of necessity, years of fear and a fresh wound of losing her husband pouring out of her all at once. Cassie has to physically pull her mother back into herself with a hug. By morning, the body is covered in insect bites, and once the family walks off, crabs crawl out of the corpse's mouth. Sit with that image for a second, because the film is telling you exactly what's coming for this family next, and it is not subtle about it. Later, while Julia and Cassie check the map, Ben wanders off dehydrated enough to try drinking from an unknown pond, and Julia yanks him back just in time, explaining the water could be contaminated. They keep pushing through brutal heat, shielding their heads from the sun, until Ben starts fading badly. They find a cluster of old chairs and build a makeshift shelter. Julia gives him an injection of medicine, and they settle in for the night. Before sunrise, Julia wakes to a strange sound and steps out to find a swarm of crabs closing in on the shelter, and this is where the film goes from survival thriller to full-blown creature horror. She wakes the kids and they sprint toward a massive cargo ship in the distance, finding 3 surviving crew members inside. The woman wants to let them in. The 2 men refuse. The crabs arrive fast, forcing Julia to get her kids climbing to the roof of the container, and when she starts climbing too, the swarm latches onto her leg and nearly drags her back down before her kids haul her up. A hole in the container lets half the swarm inside, and the crew opens fire, but there are simply too many. One by one, all 3 crew members are overwhelmed and killed, the last one dragged down even as he reached a hole in the ceiling trying to escape. Julia bandages her leg and passes out from blood loss and exhaustion, and wakes up alone in the middle of a sandstorm. She grabs a weapon off one of the dead crew and searches frantically for her kids, and Cassie comes running at the sound of her screaming, explaining they'd gone looking for help and found nothing. They reunite with Ben, who's found an empty container to shelter in until the storm passes. Julia uses Tom's lighter to cauterize her wound, which is exactly as painful as it sounds, and once the storm clears, they find fresh water bottles, a radio, and a gun among the wreckage. Julia reaches Noah again and tells him she's lost the map. He tells her something worse: he's been attacked by deep-sea arthropods, creatures from the abyss that surface oxygen appears to be driving into a frenzy. He warns them the ocean is returning faster than his instruments predicted, meaning they have hours, not days, and fires a flare to mark his direction. The family moves fast. After a long stretch of walking, they finally spot the submarine, but a rocky formation stands between them and it, and halfway across, the ground gives way into a full rock slide. Julia shoves her kids clear and scrambles back herself, but the collapse leaves a wall of rock between her and them. She tells them to keep going without her. Cassie refuses and begs her to climb. After a screaming match neither of them wanted to have, Julia promises she'll find them, and Cassie is forced to drag her brother away. The kids reach the submarine and find Noah outside, bleeding out, telling them it's over for him and to take the sub. Realizing there's now an open seat, Cassie turns straight around and runs back for her mother. Meanwhile, Julia is fighting off the returning crab swarm with a gun that's rapidly running out of ammo, killing what she can but nowhere near enough. Cassie appears at the top of the rock wall and reaches down, and Julia climbs toward her with a torn-up leg and pure will. Together they make it over and sprint for the submarine, where Ben is already up top laying down cover fire while the crabs, having found Noah's body, tear into it instead. Julia grabs the gun to buy her kids time to get inside, and once they're safe, she throws the empty weapon at the swarm and dives in behind them, sealing the hatch just as the crabs surround the hull. Then the ocean returns. All at once, the water slams back into existence, and the submarine is thrown around like a toy. There's a high-pitched frequency screams through the sub one more time and knocks the entire family unconscious. When Julia and the kids finally wake up, they're alive, and that alone feels like a miracle. They open the hatch to find the submarine has been dropped in the middle of a destroyed, flooded city. It's devastating. And it's also proof, in the middle of all that wreckage, that there's still a world left to rebuild, and they're still here to try. Before you click off, just give me 30 seconds, let me tell you my thoughts about this movie. Billionz family, here's what this film taught me. Tom did everything right. He protected his family, stayed calm, made every right call, and one moment of trust in a stranger still cost him his life. You can do everything right and still lose people. So stop waiting. Stop assuming tomorrow is guaranteed. The people standing next to you right now, tell them what they mean to you today, because this film showed us the ocean doesn't care how careful you are. It just comes back anyway. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, where every story leaves you with something real. Turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Also, tell us your thoughts about this movie in the comments below. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one.